Do you ever eat too much and then you kind of get stuck, like yawning nonstop? I had to run around all afternoon and I came home and my wife made some chicken tikka masala or something. I don't know, something good. And I was just like grating and eating and watching Godzilla versus Kong and like eating and eating and eating. And all of a sudden, like I realized I can't stop yawning. It's brutal. But anyway, I've entered your Unit 6 stuff. Um, First of all, you calculate your grade by totaling the multiple choice and double the free response. That's your total. The curve on this exam was 36. So you might have done very well. We actually had a perfect score on this exam. But generally speaking, the free response was, as I expected, kind of gnarly. Um, Overall, actually, a lot of students were right around the curve because the curve was a little bit lower than I would like. Um, Remember to ignore the denominator in the multiple choice of free response column. You just have to look that your score is accurate. You can see how you were graded in AP Classroom, make sure I transferred your grade correctly, and you can check your grade in Neo, where I put little ones wherever you got credit. Um, Remember that corrections are here for you. I don't want you to be depressed when you do poorly on an exam. You can all turn in corrections. And I usually like to get them done before the following unit, but obviously the following unit exam is on Tuesday and I don't want to rush you. So I'll keep this correction assignment open a bit longer than usual. I'll give you until Thursday of next week. In the multiple choice overall, the questions were really solid. Um, the one flaw, the fatal flaw, was the calculations for half-life. I didn't do a lot of very direct teaching, so it's not necessarily your fault. I did try to give you a heads up briefly in lecture videos, but I know that math sucks, and for many of you, a lot of this math is very foreign, so just make sure that you practice that. Um, in the free response questions, I do have some feedback. This might help you in the corrections. Question A asked for 2 ways to make coal cleaner. A lot of students got a point and some students got 2 points, but I noticed a lot of kids were saying stuff that wasn't in my key. Now, it's always my reflex when I haven't taught something and the students give me an answer, which I know to be correct, but I also know I haven't taught. It's always my reflex to assume that students have cheated. Like I would know it's a correct answer, but how would you know unless you Googled it? So a lot of times when I see an answer that I didn't teach you, I assume that you cheated and I don't give you credit for it. Then again, I don't have perfect organization of all the facts. Maybe the key was developed before I changed the reader. God forbid, maybe I'm using an old part of a question that was from the previous edition of our textbook. So who knows? What I assumed is a lot of outside sources might be an outdated answer key. And so don't take this personally. I'm not accusing you, but if you can prove that you were referencing our course, like our class or our book or our reader, in-class movie, whatever, and I didn't give you credit, you know, you'll be like, oh, I thought this was real. How come I didn't get a point? Just send me an email. Title that email Appeal Unit 6 FRQA. You can see it at the bottom of this shared screen. And then in your email say, hey, on A, I said flue gas desulfurization, and that's on page 246 of our textbook. Okay, just convince me that you didn't find this in an outside source, and I'll happily reconsider your grade. I apologize if this is extra work for you. I struggle with how to deal with cheating on exams that are taken at home online. B was the worst question about tar sand and coal shale and stuff. Basically, these are just really energy intensive types of extraction. We have to use a lot of energy, which makes these more expensive fossil fuels because they're expensive in energy terms to take out of the ground. Now, the biggest confusion was the following. Almost nobody got this right. Once you take this petroleum out of the ground, it's the same petroleum as any other petroleum. It's not cleaner and it's not dirtier once the petroleum is out of the ground. It's still considered the dirtiest petroleum because you've made so much atmospheric pollution in the production of that fossil fuel. Meaning it has a lot more fossil fuel, CO2, air emissions, pollution before it's produced than any other fossil fuel. Then once you use it, it's like the same. It's not a dirtier fuel exactly, it's dirtier in its production. This was a tricky question. Very few students got that right. C asked for the nuclear reaction and how to avoid a meltdown. Most of you understood how to avoid a meltdown, but many of you failed to explain the chemical reaction. Tidal electricity was pretty manageable for many of you, but explaining how biomass is used for electricity confused about half my students. A bunch of kids explained how biomass is used for energy. Like you can burn sticks to stay warm at home. That's correct, but that's not what the question was asking. The question said, how do you use biomass for electricity? And the pro-con of the debates for many topics. The most common was nuclear energy. The second most common was fracking. Most of you did very well on E. Overall, considering that this is always the hardest unit, you did better than many of my students on average last year. The class average this term was better than my in-class students before COVID. I know it's a tricky one. Take advantage of the corrections, please. Let me know if you have any questions. Remember that you have to put that title on your email if you'd like me to reconsider your FRQA. Good job. I'm done.